Okay, we've missed the watch. Shake and mustard, that's what we want. Good morning, the sun is out, hence we are up here this morning. Mainly, firstly absorb a bit of the sunshine ourselves, but secondly let the girls have a bit of a run around because it has been grim. Since the last vlog came out, it is now Thursday. Every day has been freezing cold, but not like sunny and cold. It has been wet, sleety, slushy, frozen, grey, blech. Since then. So we've been coming up, obviously, because we've got the chickens, we're up here every day, or at least mum is up here every day anyway, one of us comes up. But they don't get to have a run around because we're up here, like we hide in the shed for a bit and they don't even want to come out. It's not like they're desperate to run around in the nasties. So yeah, today we're up here mainly just to let the girls out. So in the last couple of days, in the slush and the grim weather, did a bit of picking. I think we got some broccoli, some cavolo nero maybe. The broccoli is pretty much coming to an end now, I think, but it's still looking all right. I think we'll still probably get, if we leave it a couple of weeks now, just because obviously it starts off firing out spears of broccoli really quick, and then as you kind of go further through, it gets slower and slower, and we've got quite a lot at this sort of size that are going to take a couple of weeks to come through, and then I think that's probably going to be the end of them. But the Brussels sprouts in the same bed, they are not a successful Brussels sprout. I can tell you that. They are pea-sized, but we're probably going to pick the tops of them today to have for dinner, because normally you would let the stems get to like full height, and as the sprouts start fattening up, you nip the tops off. It's like a giant sprout, a loose giant sprout. Oh, I've got fluff all stuck to my fingers. That's from Lily. Yeah, so then you take the top out, and that kind of focuses the energy back down into the stem, and then all your Brussels sprouts swell up. Well, ours, obviously, as you remember, they had a very tough start to life. They were dug out every night for about 3 weeks and replanted. So they never really got established. And one of the things with brassicas is that they really don't like to have their roots disturbed, and they don't like to wobble around. They like to be like in rock solid ground. To really, like, when you're planting brassicas, you're like properly treading them in the hope that they're not going to move, and you stake them so they don't rock, not taking into account badgers and foxes who just like hoik them out of the ground every night. So the Brussels sprouts never really did anything, but I think it's probably time we take the tops and then see if anything happens at the bottom. But to be fair, they're only about a foot tall. I'll take you up there to have a look at them in a mo. And other than that, chaps, I think we're just up here to sit in the sunshine. But first, let me show you what's happening with those Brussels peas. These here are the broccolis. You can see they're stubby little chaps at the moment, and they've slowed right down, but they will be pickable fairly shortly. They've been much more successful than these chaps, which is the Brussels tops. So these are the tops. You can see they do look a bit like a Brussels, although our peas underneath are very small. So we will take these heads, and they're absolutely delicious, really sweet. And hopefully it's going to spur some life into the underside, because some of these look really very sad. Look at that. Oh dear. Okay, I have a question for you. Is anybody out there either an ice scientist or a physicist and can explain to me what's happening here? Because this doesn't make any sense to me. Let me show you. Okay, we covered up a couple of the smaller dahlias up this end with this cloche and some fleece underneath. It was the ones at that end that we covered with the leaves. But the ones up this end, by the time we went to cover them up, the leaves were really soggy and it wasn't going to do the job that we wanted. Now, on top of here, the water has collected and frozen. As you can see, it's solid. But what I want to know is, how has this happened? We have these like peaks of ice. We have got a big ice peak there. It comes up, and before the sun came out, it was like another inch up, so it wasn't a small thing. And we got minor ones here. See how they just rise up? And here's another one. Rises up out there now. There is nothing above us. There's been no drip. As you can see, it is just blue sky above us. Absolutely nothing. So why have they formed? Why do we have stalagmites forming on our ice topping when there's nothing to be dripping from? Answers on a postcard, please, chaps. By postcard, I mean in the comments underneath. It's been cold, but not been windy. Look who is still on our plot. What's happening in there? Ooh! Oh, I was thinking this was going to look very sad in here. We haven't looked in here for, how much would you say it was? But 2 weeks. Probably 2 weeks we haven't opened this door. And I was thinking it's going to have got very sweaty in here and cold and everything was probably going to have suffered. But actually, it looks fantastic. Look at this. So we have got coriander and parsley growing through here. So that's pretty good. It actually looks really strong. I'm well impressed with that. The dragon's tongue mustard, that was initially, this was the only place where we had a little bit of digging when the rats came in through the door, is actually looking really nice. And how beautiful is that? Look, it's really lovely. They're coming along strong. Look at the lamb's lettuce. I think we'll be having a picking of this tonight. They look fantastic. So strong. I don't think we've ever had lamb's lettuce like grow that strong before. It looks brilliant, like real, each one of the rosettes, you know how like lamb's lettuce grows quite flat to the ground and then you've got like a little rosette on top and you pinch out from the top your bit of lamb's lettuce and then it kind of grows more heads. Well, I think these are definitely the biggest heads we've ever had. They're like proper beefies, so that's exciting. This is a weed and shouldn't be here.
Right, take it out.
Yeah.
I thought it was some exotic, something like basil or something like that. But no,
No.
it's a weed, definitely. All right, I'll take
Okay.
that one out.
But next to them, I'll just come along. So the chard is looking a little bit on the sad front. That's these chaps. So these came in here really, really late. And you'll see they've been affected by whatever has been on them. Like these are, but there's little leaves coming. You see how these are really gnarled? That's because we've had things eating them, basically. But they're all gone now. Do you remember those little white bugs that were in there? They're nowhere to be seen now. They will have just gone back into the soil, but they've got good new growth on there. So I'm optimistic that we will have some chard next year for spring. The other mustard green, which is the green wave, is looking gorgeous. I mean, look at this. They're good sized plants in here already. I'm really chuffed with that. This is where we did have a patch of spinach, you know, like just pick and come again spinach. And we thought it had all gone. It had all been eaten off. But actually a couple of them are trying to make a comeback. So we might get something from them. Obviously, they're looking extremely weedy at the moment, but there is actually something there, which was more than there was when we last looked in the door. And then there's spring onions, which haven't fared that well. You can see they have been affected by the damp in here. They've sort of got a bit of, you know, mold on the top of them, but actually underneath they are growing quite strong. So we might get some good spring onions from them. There's still a bit of potential there. I wasn't expecting to be picking these until early spring anyway, so they do have a bit of a chance to get going. And that's a point actually. We were going to sow some more spring onions today. We're going to do spring onions, leeks and onions imminently. But what we want to do is start them off in the greenhouse rather than at home. And the greenhouse is just way too cold at the moment. Obviously, it's blooming freezing. So I wonder, Mum, do you think we should start them at home, but in the conservatory where it's cold, and then bring them up here when we've got past this cold patch?
Yes.
Yeah,
Too cold at the moment.
I think that's probably what we'll do. Okay, so change of plans. We'll get some more spring onions in today, but we'll do them at home. I won't put them in, you know, where we've put the cucumbers and the chilies last week. They're not going to be up there in the office. They're going to be downstairs in the conservatory, which does have a radiator in it, but also the windows don't actually meet the roof. So there's just gaps all the way around the top. So it's blooming freezing and the radiator is a bit of a waste of time.
Just one.
Mum's showing off that weed that she pulled out. Look at that. It's a beast.
Just one. It looks like it should be something there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks like it's got a very sort of forget-me-not feel to it. Have you tasted it? No, it tastes like lamb's lettuce.
Might be a
Mutant lamb's lettuce.
yes, because that's just grown from that.
Yeah.
Might be baby.
But I don't always recommend just tasting things to see if they're a plant or not. But that tastes like lamb's lettuce.
Yes.
Yeah,
more
it
like
does,
that.
doesn't
That's at the bottom part.
That looks
and then
like
that's
it.
how it's grown.
Oh, well, let's
further
take it
on.
home and eat it.
All right, go and wash it. We'll wash it.
Yeah,
later,
we'll
but-
take it home and eat it. On further inspection, we have come to the conclusion that this is actually just a lamb's lettuce that has gone to seed. It's never happened to us before, but that's what it is. Waste not, want not. This is a very exciting harvest because my other half doesn't like vegetables. I know, can you believe it? He really is not keen. If there's anything green on the plate, he either eats it first to get rid of it as quick as possible, or he just leaves it. I know, outrageous, right? Whereas I absolutely, just the joy that they bring. Anyway, one of the things he does like is lamb's lettuce. So this was grown with love for the man who doesn't eat vegetables. How did I end up in this situation? It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, even like beautiful homegrown loveliness, he's not interested. What a wally. What a wally. There we go. Okay, so we've got mustard greens we could eat. We've got a little bit of chard, but I'm a bit worried about taking more of this because we want them to be strong enough to survive. We could probably have a couple of leaves of this big one, but it's not really enough for 4. We could have cabbage with pie. That would be quite nice, wouldn't it? We've got turnip tops over here.
Quite nice too.
They would. Not very many of them though. There is more chard, but that needs to get stronger than that before we start picking it. There's cavallonero. There's red kale. These ones have had it, I think. But the cabbages are good to go. Now, we do have more mustard greens in here. Oh, look at that beautiful head. Oh, yeah. Right, I think we should take a cabbage for dinner tonight with the pie. So I know we picked our first one of these, what was it? It must have been 3 weeks, no, more than 3 weeks ago now because it was before Christmas, but still, look at that. It is not whopping. You know, like some people when they're taking pictures of their cabbages and they're like this behind them. Well, the only way I could do that would be if I put that look at the size of my enormous cabbage. Except it's only this big. But still, I'm extremely, extremely happy with that tight little head. Whoa, yeah. Yeah. So we've got lamb's lettuce and a cabbage, and I'm well happy. And I think it's probably time for us to head off now. You can see we're losing the sunshine up there a bit now. And I can tell you, it is absolutely freezing in the shade. It's actually quite nice in the sunshine. But the girlies have had about, what have you had, girlies? About an hour, do you think? Had about an hour? I think they've had about an hour's run around. But actually, this morning we were hanging around at home most of the morning because the guys are supposed to be coming doing something with our gas and electric meters today, and they were supposed to come between 8 o'clock and 12 o'clock. So we piddled around at home, like waiting for them. To be fair, I wasn't up at 8 o'clock. But still, like, we waited for them and nothing happened. So we decided to come up here, and then we've just got a call to say that they have arrived. So yeah, we're going to go back and check that out. But yeah, oh, look how glowing that cabbage is in the sunshine. It's a beauty. It's a beauty. Yeah, I'm proper chuffed with that. Proper chuffed with my cabbage. Right, girlies, I think it's time you go back in, girls. I know, disaster. We are actually losing the light a bit. So I've got to get the polytunnel closed actually because it's come out of the sunshine now, so the temperature in there will really plummet. So I'll get the door closed on that. Actually, that's priority. You can see it's just got a little bit on here, but the back of it is completely shady. Just get rid of these. Fab. Yeah, cold. Look at this little beast, Mum. See you later, Lils. See you later, Lils. Meow, meow, meow. Good morning. Good morning. Hello. No beautiful sunshine. It's grey, it's grey. We have just had 2 days of proper cold. It's been gorgeous blue skies, but it's been absolutely frozen. It never got above 0 yesterday, even with the sunshine. But this morning we got cloud cover, and actually, I mean, although it's still blooming cold, things are melting. Like, this was really white the last couple of days, and actually, like, it's starting to melt. The ground is still rock solid, but it's not white and rock solid. So yeah, advancements into warmth has happened. Yeah, have a look at this. Frozen water, not much good there. Fret not, though, the girls do have fresh water. That was done this morning with hot, you know. Theirs hasn't frozen. But yeah, it's obviously been a little bit chilly in the shed here. Main objectives while we're up here, I'm really here just to pick up some pots. Some little narrow ones. You know, the ones that I sowed the chilies in was like a big beast. I just want some little teeny tiny ones to sow into at home. And to get a bit of fresh air, because yesterday the only trip out I had was going to a chiropractor, going to Waitrose and going to Marks and Spencer's. Not very outdoorsy life yesterday. I was hiding inside most of the day. Ooh, girlies. Hey, definitely a bit warmer today, isn't it? Yes. Right, let me go and hunt down some pots. I've come for the green pots, but... Oh, they're in the greenhouse. Oh, stagger. Look, all the bulbs coming up under here now. Sorry? Yes, I think he said it's coming on Tuesday. Oh, look at those poor broad beans. They do not look happy. Right, let's take them home with us. That'll do. Yeah, look at these poor chaps. Proper floppy. But this is what broad beans do. They go, whoa, and then it just takes the tiniest little spark of warmth and they're straight back up again. So there's no need to fret if your beans are currently looking in this dreadful state. Actually, I'm not even going to move them because they're in danger of, you know, breaking. They're all very floppy. I'll just leave them alone. We have got a little bit of germination on the new ones coming through. I think we've got a couple of mounds in there, you know, where the soil starts going. You can't actually see the beans yet, but there's activity happening. Yeah, but I've got my pots. That's these ones here. That's all we came up for, really. That's all we came up for. I think, oh, they're frozen together. That's good. Right. Okay, I think that's about it for me. Whew. Yeah, so I'm just having a look at the thermometer here. I mean, it's 3 degrees in here. It's nothing like it has been. Got down to -4 in here. Not last night, the night before. So yeah, considerably warmer. And this frozen bucket has definitely got liquid water in it a little bit now. So, right. Yeah, look, even my breath's not really coming out. Last couple of days, that's been like a steam engine billowing. It has been. Right. I think that's about it, chaps. I think we might go home and do some sewing. Brussels tops. Brussels tops. Do you think they'll be able to handle it? I don't think anything's going to be able to handle it. We might have to wait till tomorrow to pick that. Yeah. That's right, it is time for the aubergines. As I mentioned earlier, in fact, it must have been last week's vlog when I was getting excited about sowing the chilies. I'm sowing 3 varieties of aubergine this year. I am doing the absolute classic bog standard Black Beauty. I sow this one every year, and most years it's successful. Last year we got nothing. In fact, God, we did end up with a Black Beauty plant, but that was from Johanna. I think ours were another victim of not getting past the seed leaves. You know, that just ridiculous year we had last year. I don't know what happened, but we are back on the game. We're not back on the game. It's not quite what I meant. We're back in the game. We're back in the game, chaps. And I'm going to do 4 of each, a bit like the chilies. I did 4 of each of them, and I'm sowing them straight into these green pots. Previous years I've done all of this early sowing in cell trays, but as I was saying last week, I've had some real mixed results, and particularly in terms of watering, because obviously you put them in water, like in a tray. So these all have holes, as do the cell trays, and then you put that inside a tray that doesn't have holes, so then you can water that way and it doesn't just run straight through and they can absorb something. But I've been having a lot of trouble with my cell trays not all touching or not all receiving the same amount of water, so you end up with one that's really super dry and some that get waterlogged. And I know that that is going to be because I bought really crappy cell trays, but they are actually the only ones I've got at the moment. And I know that Container Wise and all of those do really fantastic ones, but at the moment I'm just going with what I've got rather than buying new again. So I'm going just like this, and I'm sowing 4 of each. So there will be 4 Black Beauty and then 4 of each of the other varieties in here as well. And I've already pre-written my labels. I know, bit snaz. Put that in there. So Black Beauty, that bog standard one, is an absolute classic aubergine, exactly like the ones that you would see in the supermarket. It is fat and black and sort of like bulbous pear-shaped. The other 2 varieties that I'm doing are not like that at all. They're long and skinny. Now, unfortunately, one of them is called White Knight, and I have been utterly convinced up until this moment that the second one was called Dark Knight. But I think that may be my own bias towards Batman-based things, because it's not called Dark Knight. It's just a dark aubergine, but it's called Purple Knight. So yeah, that was my error. So it's White Knight and Purple Knight are the 2 that I'm doing, and they are very long and skinny, and they grow in clusters rather than the Black Beauty, which is just one big chonker and you get like maybe 4 good sized fruit off a plant. These you get like lots of little ones, and in fact these are both varieties, the White Knight and the Purple Knight, are from Ian, and Ian doesn't have any pictures on his actual seed packet, but in terms of what they sort of look like, this is not the right packet because this is early long purple, but it's that style of aubergine. So they're long and skinny, they're about this sort of size, long and skinny, and they're absolutely delicious. Didn't get any Purple Knight last year. This is the first year I'm growing that one, but the White Knight, which is the white version of that, what a fantastic little aubergine that was, in a year where we really struggled with well, any sunshine or anything coming in, and the greenhouse itself just never really got into that proper mode of like hot and humid, and so we got chilies and peppers and aubergines and everything, and it just never really happened. But the White Knight still performed. We got some really nice little aubergines off that, and we got about, we had 2 plants, I think we got about 9 or 10 fruit off there, which, but considering, like I say, poor year, I reckon if we have a good year this year, which is like touch wood, we should get a really good crop. You can actually get a really quite large array of aubergines. It's one of those things that we still really do only get the basic ones in the supermarket. You know, like most other things now, like tomatoes, you do get quite a selection. It's not just like your bog standard red chaps in the supermarket. But aubergines, it's still very much, unless you go to a specialist place, it's still very much like the Black Beauty style, just like basic. But the array that you can get is quite amazing. And one year I grew the most stunning ones. They were called Turkish aubergines, and they were orange, but they were shaped like little lanterns. They were short and fat, almost like a patty pan type aubergine, short and fat and ribbed, like little baby pumpkins, I suppose, and bright orange. And they were such beautiful plants. I didn't actually like the taste of the aubergines, I've got to say. They were very, very bitter. And I think they're the style long ago, back in the mist of time. And if you read old recipes that have aubergine in them, they always say you've got to salt the aubergine. So you slice it, dice it, do whatever you're doing with it, and then you cover it in salt and leave it and compress it. And then you wash all the salt off. And I think that's because previously aubergines used to be really, really bitter. Obviously, we've bred them, and now new varieties are not bitter, a bit like cucumbers used to be very much like that. And I think the Turkish ones were still in that style because I didn't salt them or anything. I just cooked them like I would an aubergine, a modern aubergine, and whew, they turned your face inside out. They were actively unpleasant, I'd say. But the thing is about them, the plants were beautiful. Like aubergine flowers are really gorgeous anyway, like just bog standard ones. You know, they're huge and they're purple and they've got these beautiful yellow stamens out the front. The plants themselves are absolutely gorgeous. But these ones, their flowers were white, and they came up from like the join of the leaf to the plant from that node. These beautiful, and they were like white candelabras, and the scent, oh my God, that year you walked into the greenhouse and the smell of them was just beautiful. But not even going down that route, like orange is a little bit like out there, but you can get green ones and you can get really fantastic like white and purple stripy ones. There is actually, I noticed, in this same series, so you've got white night, purple night and green night, which is the same but long and green, and I'm really tempted. I'm going to see how these two do this year, but if they're good, I'm going to be growing all three next year. All three. Because you know when you're cooking aubergines, the middle section tends to go to a bit of mush, like which is part of the joy of an aubergine, admittedly, like if you're going to bake it and scoop it out and have baba ganoush and all that kind of stuff. But if you're just like frying them or putting them in a curry or something, the outside, so the skin's good, outside flesh good, inside where you kind of got the seedy bit, can sometimes go a bit like a slug. Gives me the creeps sometimes if I'm not careful. These long skinny ones, what's really nice about them is they have very, very little of that in the middle. So you just slice them, you know, straight up, so you've got perfect rounds of them. Because they've got the solid flesh all the way around the outside with the skin holding them, they hold together really nicely. Like we were just slicing them quite chunky like this and throwing them in like a Thai curry at the end. And oh my God, they were so delicious. Right. That's my rant over about aubergines, but here we go. That is them done. I just cover them over. Actually, I'm just going to nick a bit of compost out of that because I've put my box of compost away. But that is our 3 aubergines for the year. I know, I'm being very moderate, aren't I? Very moderate. Okay. So aubergines are one of the ones that fall into the chili peppers kind of situation, that they need heat to germinate, but they also have an incredibly long growing season to actually get them to fruit. So that's why they're being sown quite this early. The other 2 trays that I've filled up here are going for things which don't need heat, and they're going to go down into the conservatory. So I'm going to do some spring onions and some red barren onions. So spring onion I'm doing is Ishikura. It is a plain white one. So Ishikura featured in the Boxing Day onions kind of set that we did last year. I didn't have a great deal of luck with that because my growing conditions were just a disaster early last year. I thought it was a really nice spring onion, great flavour. It was really nice cooked and raw. You know, sometimes they do better cooked, some of these spring onion varieties. But I tell you what, so normally the spring onions that I grow is a variety called Lilia, which is a purple one. Really, really lovely, but it does do better a little bit later in the year. And the Ishikura that we started early last year did much better. So I'm starting that one early. And I'm also doing red barren. Now red barren is a full bulbing, like proper sized red onion. I never have a great deal of luck with it going for that time. And when you're growing those, you're supposed to sow them about March time. but I'm growing these to make pickled onions, which they make excellent pickled onions. So you pick them when they're about that sort of size. So almost like halfway between an onion and a spring onion type thing. And it just started bulbing at the bottom, and then let it tail over so that it goes dry. Snip the tops off. Pickled onions, outstanding. They're so good. So that's what I'm specifically growing these for. I will grow some red onions later in the year. It's a bit early for that, for me. Some people sow theirs on Boxing Day, like I say, didn't work very well for me. So that is Red Baron and Ishikura. I should just label them while I can remember, because the seed looks exactly the same. Ishikura and Red Baron. So often at this time of year I will sow leeks, but that is one of the ones that I'm holding off on this year. You know, I said earlier I wasn't going to go mad in January. I'm not going mad in January. This is about it. The only other thing that I'm going to sow this month are my sweet peppers towards the end of the month, and I do have 2 other chilies that I want to get in. But talking of January sowings, let me update you on the cucumbers. All 4 are up. Obviously this is just 2. You can see they are quite leggy, but they're now under the lights and they've completely stopped growing. So they rocketed up like that. Do you know they germinated in like a day? I was so shocked. I put them all, so I sowed them and I put them under their cover on their nice heat mat and everything, and then I walked away. I didn't think to look back like 2 days later, 3 days later, they were this high. Anyway, they've stabilized now and they're really starting to put on some growth, like leaf-wise at the top. They are just starting to form something in the centre there, so they should be excellent. I'm really happy with those. We should be cucumber rich by April. So far, no sightings of any chilies though. Right, I think that is me done up here. I've got to take the onions downstairs. They're going to go into the conservatory in the cool, and aubergines in the heat. Cheers, chaps. Now, if you are quite rightly wondering what the hell she's got in her glass of wine, because that would be some seriously toxic rosé, wouldn't it? It's actually a raspberry mojito. I know. And actually, it's one of those pre-mixed ones. And normally, oh God, any of those pre-mixed drinks that you can buy, you know, in the little cans, they are so eye-wateringly sweet. Like you're sipping them and it's like, oh, God, ears go hot from the amount of sugar in them. This, oh yeah, it's absolutely lovely. It's really sharp, like proper raspberry flavour. It's nice. Now I've just got to be careful not to down it. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so one of the things we never got round to doing this week was picking the Brussels tops, which are those like little florets on top of the Brussels sprout plants. I actually ended up not doing that because we weren't going to eat them the first day, and then the second day everything was really frozen, and it always feels like it's just extra damage that a plant doesn't need when it's really that cold. It's like the chard. I could have picked some chard that I quite fancied, and also loads of Komatsuna. We are not short of Komatsuna, I gotta tell you. We're having Komatsuna in everything. But the last couple of days when it's been really cold, it's one of those plants a bit like the broad beans where it goes completely flat and looks like a complete goner in the cold, but then the moment it warms up again, it's back. I just thought it was just going to damage the plant too much to pick it while it was in like collapso mode. So we didn't. And I didn't pick the Brussels sprout tops for the same reason. I'll wait till it warms up a bit. It's not like we needed them. I just think it's something that we need to take them off, and also they're delicious. I don't want to let them go too long so that they're old and ropey before we actually eat them, missing out on a delicacy. Something else that I didn't pick this week that I was really tempted to before it got cold was the nipper leeks. So we've actually got some leeks in at the moment. Last year's leeks, as I was saying when I was sowing those spring onions and the Red Baron yesterday, we did Boxing Day sowings last year, which was something that quite a large group of us were doing, and it just didn't work. I don't think it worked because of the year rather than the basic premise, because I know a lot of people sow them on Boxing Day, like it's quite traditional. It wasn't like pushing it or anything, it's like quite a traditional day to sow them, but it didn't work for me last year. along with a lot of other things. But what that meant is, because I sowed my leeks then, they came up. They just never got past like this sort of stage, and they just failed in the end. And by that stage, I'd left it a bit late to sow more, or at least I'd ticked them off in my head that like leeks are on the go, rather than actually waiting till they were planted out and everything. And then we ended up with none. So I threw in some nippers, which are a variety of leek that I've been growing for years. I really love. It's a baby leek. So it looks more like a sort of spring onion size. It's a bit fatter than a spring onion. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's still really, really skinny. And we grow them in particular. Initially, we started growing them because they're in the ground for such a short amount of time that they don't tend to get affected by allium white rot or allium leaf miner, which is two pests that we've got quite prevalently on the plot. But because they're in the ground for such a short amount of time, as opposed to like a big fat leek that you've got to kind of plant out and then it's in the ground for a long time and you're earthing it up and all that kind of stuff, and it's in there for like a good 8 months. These are only in there for about 4 or 5 months, and they just don't get affected that badly. But I've got a load of them that need digging up. And it was just too cold. The ground was completely frozen. So they also went on the I didn't pick them. Anyway, I'm going to say cheers. Have another sip of that. Oh, it's good. Oh, it's really sharp. It's really nice. So that is the second week of January completed. I'll see you next week, chaps. Huge thank you to my Patreons. As always, the people whose names you see at the end of the vlog. They keep this channel going. They are the reason that we can keep doing this every week. So huge thank you to them. Huge thank you to everybody who watches on YouTube week in, week out. It's amazing that there's so many of you. Sometimes I look at the numbers on my screen, you know, log into something. I'm not much of a number watcher, I've got to say. That, but you log in and you just sit and you're just like, holy smoke, that's amazing that many people actually sit down and choose to watch what we've been doing at the allotment for the last week. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I'm going to say cheers to that. Cheers to, oh look how it's glowing. It doesn't look very natural, does it? Looks like some sort of like red mountain dew or something. Anyway, cheers chaps. I will see you next week. Cheers. We are back on the game. We're not back on the game. It's not quite what I meant. We're back in the game.